All right, so you are listening to the Spotlight podcast from Lighthouse. And in this episode, we're going to switch things up. This will be a little bit different from what you've heard in the past. But in this episode, what we're going to do is actually look at a recent case study from our RSS team. So first, we're going to start off by talking with Aditya Patel. So just to give you a little bit of a background on this hotel, and what this particular case study is all about is we're looking at some of these hotels that we were able to make some really impactful decisions and strategy changes that really changed the overall performance of these hotels in a really positive way. So this first hotel that we're going to look at was a mid-scale hotel in Central California. And Aditya, again, he's the revenue manager of this property, so he'll be able to give us some really, really good details.
So a couple of things to begin with, from the hotel perspective, again, necessarily not challenges, but certainly areas of opportunity. This hotel was, fairly new build. Just seeing overall occupancy levels, especially when it comes to the peak months on the lower half of the comp set rankings, we certainly felt that is one area of opportunity that we can tap into, try and improve overall positioning as far as occupancy is concerned. We certainly wanted to try and, outperform the comp set when, we were in our peak season.
This is last year's occupancy ranking. Back in 2023, even though May, June, and July tend to be your peak season for this hotel, you can see that your occupancy last year, you were ranking 4 out of 7. And even in June of last year, 7 out of 7, and then July, 5 out of 7. So is that kind of that was the main opportunity that you spotted, was just basically you're not ranking well from a
Exactly. Like if you see our actual indexes, most days they would be high 80s into the 90s. So from that perspective, because we always had much higher ADR index as far as RevPAR, it always pushed us above, the 100 on RevPAR index is concerned. But overall, just the ranking, especially looking at the product that we have and being a new build, it just didn't make sense to be in that lower half of the comp set.
Can you talk through a little bit about, okay, we've identified the problem, right? It's that we're not ranking well on occupancy despite being in the high season. What was your strategy that kind of helped you combat these kind of like the lower rankings on occupancy in the peak season?
So a couple of things that we tried and made sure that everyone on board was okay trying is we spotted a lot of our weekday occupancies. Those are days that we identified that we want to try and push overall occupancy for us. And that meant being proactive with rates, trying to ensure that, even if it meant we are pricing slightly under the comp set to gain occupancy beforehand, build that base. And then since this is a leisure market, we could always trust the last minute pickup that we tend to get, especially in our strong months or summer months, that, once we have a good base of 50-60% occupancy, that last minute pickup or within the week pickup can help us push our overall occupancy. Being proactive with rates and putting in place those strategies for weekdays. And then the other thing that we also ensured that we are overall placed high when it comes to visibility, using different digital strategies, different tools like, accelerators, travel ads, things like that, to ensure that we are amongst the top when it comes to visibility on all channels as well.
Looking at some of your results here, it looks like year over year, you were actually able to get some ADR growth and some market share growth for weekend ADR. So even while you're making those really smart adjustments to your weekdays, it looks like you guys there was still rate opportunity. You were still pushing on the weekends as well. Is that right?
Exactly. So with weekends, the other thing we ensured is overall making sure that trusting that last minute pickup, because we've had weeks where, when we start the week on Monday, we would have like 30 rooms left to sell for Saturday, but we always knew that demand is there, especially for weekends. So we would pick up those 30 rooms, not undercutting our rate a lot, but just ensuring that we are priced in line, and then well ahead of time, especially if the booking window is very, very short. Make sure that even 2 weeks out, you're priced higher than the comp set, or at least in line, that way you're not losing out on that. And then the other thing that certainly helped is making sure that our suite rooms, they are priced appropriately, and then we are getting more value out of those rooms to help with overall ADR. And then, with weekends, I would say the other thing also helps is once you start setting out those weekends, redemption rooms also play a key role.
So let's get to the fun part here and look at some of your results. Looking at the high season for this hotel, it's May through the end of July 2024 versus 2023. They look really, really good. Aditya had room night growth for all 7 days of week. And one thing that's interesting is, yes, you do see that ADR dropping off, and in some cases, pretty significantly, right? So that Sunday ADR is dropping $31, Tuesday ADR is dropping $4, but it's very, very much offset by the gains that you experienced on nights like Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. This year to last year, you guys were up 546 room nights. Your ADR only dropped $2. So this hotel gained an additional $130,000 in room revenue for just that 3-month period year over year. What I thought was the most telling was you did not lose rank year over year in ADR, but where you did pick up really huge gains was in occupancy. So May, you guys were 4 out of 7 in your market. This year, you jumped up to number 1 out of 7, but you maintained that ADR rank of number 2. And then in June, you jumped from 7 to 3 in your occupancy ranking. And then in July, you jump from 5 up to 2, but the whole time you're maintaining that exact same rank that you had last year.
The one thing that I would add on to that is, like we talked about those redemption nights, the 130,000 that we talked about is just the room revenue. And then in addition to that, as far as redemption revenue is concerned, we're able to add additional 18,000 revenue higher than last year. So technically, if you do see and look at those numbers, you were almost $150,000 higher than what you were same time last year. So again, like you said, since it's not a huge hotel, this kind of growth is certainly really good to see, and it puts us really well in terms of overall strength for the year.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed that case study there from Aditya. Just a reminder, if you're enjoying the podcast episode or want to listen to some of our other episodes that we've done in the past, you can find those at mylighthouse.com/podcast. Also, I know I'm putting some visuals up on the screen right now for our video viewers, but if you want to download this case study yourself and follow along, I'll include a link here in the description. Now, let's get into the next case study with Virginia. All right, cool. So we're here with Virginia, and we've already seen Aditya's case study, and now we're going to move into a different case study. And this is a really interesting one because this is a case of a hotel that had never had revenue management before. This is a luxury historic hotel in the Southwest US, a really cool market, really awesome kind of boutique hotel.
Yeah, definitely. So definitely a fun property to work with, I think, especially just considering the size of it and its location. I think it was really surprising to hear that they've never had any, I would say, dedicated revenue management. And a lot of that actually had to do with the fact that they were performing well, right? They were meeting budget each year. They had a pretty comfortable occupancy, but I would say the biggest things that we noticed was that, we think that we may be losing out on opportunities because we have quite a bit of group in this market, where we get a lot of group leads and we contract group and we're performing well, but are we potentially, as a result, displacing other opportunities in this hot market?
Okay. So is it kind of safe to say they almost kind of had it on easy mode, right? Because such a cool hotel, cool market, and it sounds like there was almost this excess amount of group demand, right? So it sounds like when you started with the hotel, you were kind of putting the lens more so on like, how can we optimize our market mix?
Yeah, exactly. And interesting that you mentioned that. So kind of going back to easy mode that you said, it's a lot of people I say don't find themselves in that opportunity of a hotel performing well, but talking about finding that perfect market mix. So with them, we did identify that they had about a good portion of their occupancy came from group in itself. And we saw that using some of the different tools within Lighthouse BI, specifically looking at rate efficiencies, we've identified several days where we were actually displacing revenue as a result of accepting groups. So I think that was just one of the many things that we used. We saw that our transient placement rank was lower than some of our competitors. So that was another thing to look. Yeah, group was number one, but our transient segment was actually, I would say, somewhere around the number 3 spot. So that in itself, I think, already spoke into areas of opportunity of where we potentially are displacing.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the strategies that you implemented. So you've identified, okay, we want to shift this market mix a little bit. We want to optimize it. Could you talk through what are some of the concrete strategies that you guys took at this hotel to achieve that?
In BI, we obviously have the availability to look at our competitors' rates all in one glance, which is really nice. And we were noticing that into the future, there really wasn't a lot of movement within our competitors' rates, right? They would maybe update their rates every couple of weeks. There was not necessarily, I would say, a dynamic pricing going on. I found that as an opportunity more than anything, because we can really focus on the property's lead time. So realistically in this market, it's a leisure market, so people are booking anywhere between 3 to 6 months, if not even 9 months in advance. So what are our competitors doing rates-wise during that time frame? And we found that they're really not doing anything. They're staying stagnant with their rate strategy. So we utilized that as an opportunity to really optimize our rates, specifically pre-post group dates that are already on the books, to take advantage of those transient opportunities for people staying beyond, let's say, maybe some of those lower season or non-event dates. And we obviously saw really good results as a result of doing that. And then within, let's say, the 30-60 day booking window, we really took advantage of some cyber sales, last minute promotions through, let's say, OTAs, the property's website. So we were just, I would say, more active and dynamic in our strategy within that time period as well.
And kind of going back to, just to touch on the market mix again, a question that just kind of popped up into my mind too was, I see here in the case study that you mentioned that you worked closely with sales to forecast some of that upcoming group wash. As you're kind of shifting away from this group mix and trying to take more of this higher ADR transient guest with a mixture of packages and promos and more targeted marketing, did you find that it was difficult to get that buy-in from sales at all? Or was it relatively easy for you to kind of quickly demonstrate, hey, yes, we still need to be taking some group business, but look at this ADR that we're able to get from the transient guest?
Yeah, of course. So we had additional meetings per week dedicated to just group sales meetings. So it was specifically tied to, okay, we have, let's say, this group in the future. Do we think that if I offer it at X rate, we're displacing any potential business? So at that point, I think we were able to encourage them to start thinking about higher ADRs or higher rates to offer for their group rates. We work together in making some of those decisions. Of course, I think they obviously took a lot of initiative in understanding that we were going to start increasing the overall bar structure because there is that enough level of demand for us to do so. So I think as we increased our bar structure in general, it also elevated the group rates that we needed to offer in that. So I think it happened naturally, but it also working together and, determining some of those higher impact groups with, larger peaks essentially, really, I would say helped create a better base for the properties overall.
And it sounds like after you implemented those strategies, you had some successes. So let's kind of talk through the results. So here, it looks like we're looking at some year over year, or at least growth between 2022 and 2023. You want to kind of talk through what were, in your opinion, the biggest wins overall at this property?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest one is that shift in business. So the property maintained their number one spot in group. And even while doing so, was able actually to increase their transient share. So finished number one in transient RevPAR for the year. But then while doing so, we actually saw an increase in ADR. So when we're looking at that nice combination of group and transient, we didn't necessarily have to drop rates to achieve any of those results, which I think was good to see. And then ultimately, the hotel had its best year in history overall, and saw an increase of about 19% in transient revenue.
All right, so we've had a case study with Aditya where the main focus was, I would say, pricing. And then our next case study that we had was there with Virginia, who you just heard. And there, the discussion was more so around optimizing their market mix, especially with group. So now let's get into our final case study with one of our revenue managers here, Adam Dwiggins, and he's going to have a slightly different topic where we touch on a little bit more on the marketing side. So let's go ahead and get into that case study now. A little bit of background on this hotel. This is roughly 150 room independent hotel in a really dynamic college market. What were some things that you noticed that you were able to maybe optimize right off the bat, and some changes you were able to make?
So whenever we first started with this hotel, you can see from some screenshots that they weren't participating in Expedia travel ads at that particular point whenever we onboarded them. And it was a definite area of opportunity, and they weren't ranking super well in the market. As you can also see again from the screenshot there, the cost per click would have been it was a very minimal barrier to entry there. And we noticed within all of this too that their page score within Expedia could definitely use some sharpening, recognizing right away some very quick, easy areas to make some very quick adjustments in the right direction for them.
Nice. So you'll see that, right? Sometimes you'll get into a market as a revenue manager where it's not super competitive with some of the cost per click campaigns and the digital marketing. You were able to load some funds up, and then you had a 25-cent bid out there, it looks like, right? Is that kind of what you did for this hotel?
Yeah, absolutely. The barrier to entry here was minimal. And the room nights over, I believe it was like a month time period here, really speaks for itself. The return on spend was an easy explanation to the hotel team, the operations team, to let them know that you spent for every dollar you got 98 back. The barriers here were very minimal. It was a very easy, quick win for them.
Let's talk about optimizing a listing outside of just a cost per click campaign, right? What are some things that you can do to some of your OTA listings to ensure that if you run a cost per click campaign, that your hotel is going to look attractive, and ultimately win bookings?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can definitely adjust photos. We'll just start there with the basics. So the photo you can use for your cost per click campaign should differ by the season. You don't want a pool photo in the middle of the winter in this particular market. Maybe you do in the summer. So you change the photo to reflect the season that you're trying to capture. And you can also, of course, you can do within this scheduled ads. Maybe it is the middle of winter right now, but you can schedule an ad with a different photo to run during the summer to capture those guests looking at that time period if you would like. You can also optimize the words you have, the characters you have within your travel ad description there within that cost per click campaign. So if you know there's a particular conference or a game or whatever the case might be that's driving demand into that area, if you can get that word front and center that guest is coming there for, then they see your hotel. Now they're interested, they're clicking and potentially booking right then and there because they see the optimization there, drawing the reader's eye to it. So definitely focusing on that. And again, going back to the scheduled ad, you can run that for all the games, all the events, the graduations, whatever it might be for that year, and then just have multiple running over that time period to, again, draw the reader's eye for every single event.
And let's look at some of your results that you had. We're looking at this month-over-month periods, and I'm going to start with this middle figure here, Adam, where we're looking at the segment drill down, and here we're specifically putting the microscope on our OTA retail production. We had 398 room nights of OTA retail. And then that next month, after we had turned on some of those cost per click campaigns, and we're getting more aggressive on those OTA channels, you had an additional 102 room nights, which brought us up to 500 room nights total in OTA production. And that's just month over month change. So really, really good results.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the revenue and the room night month over month there really spoke for itself. I mean, like you said, it was 100 room nights there, $10,000 more in revenue. Obviously, the hotel team very happy with that. So then going to the actual travel ad image there, if you will, seeing the 93 room nights over, again, roughly a month time period there, right? Really, really good production. You're looking at roughly, a little more than 3 a day there, right, coming through, which is really good. Being a 98-1, phenomenal numbers there. Really, really good performance. To see 25 cents per click, and there was 480 clicks to spend $121 here, really spoke for itself to drive in almost $12,000 in clicked revenue there. Really, really good. So they were obviously very thrilled with that right off the bat. This was, again, we've said it before, something that made the team very happy right from the start, just seeing that, essentially a home run hit right away. It was very easy, big win for them right away.
All right. So I hope you enjoyed that episode, especially with the new video format on YouTube and some of the other channels. If you enjoyed, again, go to mylighthouse.com/podcast, where you can subscribe and also see some of our past episodes. So thanks again for listening. We'll catch you next time.